Today, we dive into the darker side of global perceptions. Russia, land of enigmatic czars, borscht-fueled winters, and more recently, international headline-grabbing shenanigans. The situation in Ukraine, the annexation of Crimea back in 2014, but hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Russia still has its vodka, its ballet, and its impressive collection of incredibly intricate nesting dolls. China, the not-so-great firewall, and other global grievances. Next up, we head east to the land of ancient wisdom, delicious dumplings, and, if we're being honest, a government more concerned with control than a teenage boy with a new sports car. China's economic rise has been nothing short of staggering, but with great economic power comes, well, a lot of people watching to see what you do with it. And China's actions, particularly when it comes to human rights, haven't exactly been winning over the global popularity contest. The treatment of the Uyghur population in Xinjiang province? Let's just say Amnesty International isn't planning a celebratory gala anytime soon. The internet censorship? Let's just say trying to access Facebook in China is like trying to hail a cab in a hurricane. Good luck with that. The United States leader of the free world? More like that one loud friend everyone secretly tolerates. Oh, America, land of the free, home of the brave, and birthplace of the Maghreb. But while America might be great at selling the American dream, its global image? Well, it's a bit like that pair of jeans you've had since college. Comfortable, familiar, but maybe not something you'd wear on a first date. And now, we venture into the Arabian desert, a land of scorching sun, vast oil reserves, and unfortunately, a less than stellar track record on human rights. Saudi Arabia, we need to talk. We know you're sitting on more oil than a Texan barbecue, but that's no excuse for treating basic human rights like unwanted house guests. Let's start with the women's rights, shall we? It's 2023, Saudi Arabia, not 1953. Women can drive now, remember? Though with the strict guardianship laws still in place, it's less driving Miss Daisy and more asking permission to go to the grocery store. And don't even get us started on the LGBTQ+ community. Then there's the whole silencing dissent thing. Journalists, activists, anyone who dares to question the status quo, they tend to disappear faster than a plate of dates at a Ramadan feast. But maybe it's time to ditch the medieval worldview and embrace some actual, human rights. Just a thought. Next, we travel to the land that secrecy built, where the internet is for the elite few and smiling seems to be strictly regulated. North Korea, everyone. Look, it's hard to even know where to begin with a country that's basically a real-life version of 1984, but we'll give it a go. First off, the whole Supreme Leader thing, it's giving off some serious cult of personality vibes, and not in a good way. And speaking of things that are a bit much, let's talk about those human rights abuses, shall we? Forced labor camps, political prisons, and a level of government surveillance that would make even Mark Zuckerberg blush. It's not exactly a recipe for a thriving, happy citizenry. And then there's the whole nuclear weapons thing. Look, we get it, North Korea, you want a seat at the big kids' table of international diplomacy. But threatening to nuke your neighbors every other Tuesday isn't exactly the best way to make friends and influence people, just saying. Israel, the land of ancient history, religious significance, and a geopolitical situation so tangled even the most seasoned diplomat wouldn't touch it without a hazmat suit and a stiff drink. Look, there's no denying the cultural and historical weight Israel carries. But it's also a country constantly teetering on the edge of a geopolitical Jenga tower, where one wrong move could send the whole thing toppling over. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the elephant in the room. A seemingly intractable issue that's been simmering for decades. And it's not just a two-sided coin either. You've got settlements, you've got Hamas, you've got international pressure, and a whole lot of historical baggage that would make even the most patient therapist reach for the anxiety meds. Israel often finds itself on the receiving end of global condemnation, particularly for its policies towards the Palestinians. The settlements, the security barrier, the blockade on Gaza. None of these are exactly winning hearts and minds on the international stage. Maybe it's time for some fresh perspectives, some bold diplomacy, and a whole lot less talk about existential threats. Just a thought. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're heading to Pakistan, a land of breathtaking beauty, vibrant culture, and, let's be honest, enough internal drama to make a Bollywood screenwriter blush. Look, Pakistan, you've got a lot going for you. Stunning mountain ranges, delicious food, and a resilience that's frankly awe-inspiring. But you've also got some serious issues to address. Let's start with the political instability, shall we? It's like watching a game of musical chairs, except the music never stops, and the chairs are constantly being rearranged. Military coups, civilian governments, a revolving door of prime ministers, it's enough to make even the most politically savvy observer reach for a stiff drink and a flowchart. And then there's the whole terrorism issue. Pakistan has been both a victim and, let's be honest, an enabler of terrorism. But maybe it's time to prioritize stability, crack down on those pesky terrorist groups, and show the world that you're serious about becoming a responsible player on the global stage. Just a thought. Next up, we're off to Iran, a country with a rich history, a penchant for beautiful poetry, and a government that seems hell-bent on making the international community reach for their collective blood pressure medication. Look, Iran, we get it. You were once a great empire, a center of learning and culture. But lately, you've been making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Let's start with the whole nuclear ambitions thing, shall we? We all breathed a collective sigh of relief when the nuclear deal was signed back in 2015. But then came the Trump administration. And well, let's just say it's back to nail-biting time for anyone concerned about nuclear proliferation. Look, Iran, we're not saying you have to become Sweden overnight, but maybe it's time to ditch the whole oppressing half your population thing. Just a thought. And now we arrive in Iraq, a country that's been through more turmoil than a teenager's love life. From ancient Mesopotamia to the rise and fall of Saddam Hussein, Iraq has seen it all. The US-led invasion in 2003 was supposed to be a liberation, a chance for Iraq to embrace democracy and freedom. Instead, it turned into a quagmire of sectarian violence, political instability, and the rise of ISIS, a terrorist group so brutal they make Genghis Khan look like a kindergarten teacher. The aftermath of the invasion left Iraq in ruins, its infrastructure decimated, its people traumatized, and its future uncertain. Look, Iraq, we know you're tired. You've been through more than any nation should have to endure. But there's still hope. You're a nation of survivors, of poets, of dreamers, and the world hasn't given up on you. And finally, we cross the English Channel, or maybe just hop on a quick flight, to visit our friends in the United Kingdom and France. Ah, Europe, land of charming accents, questionable cuisine. We're looking at you, snails and blood sausage. And oh yeah, centuries of colonialism that left the world map looking like a messy game of Risk gone wrong. Look, we get it. The British Empire was once vast and powerful, the sun literally never setting on its colonies. And France? Well, you guys were busy spreading liberté, égalité, fraternité with all the subtlety of a baguette-wielding Napoleon. But here's the thing about colonialism. It's not exactly the best look in retrospect. Exploiting resources, subjugating populations, drawing arbitrary lines on a map, it's enough to make even the most ardent monarchist blush. The legacy of colonialism is still felt today in the economic disparities, the political instability, and the cultural scars left behind in its wake. From Russia's aggressive expansionism to China's human rights record, from America's interventionist tendencies to Saudi Arabia's treatment of women, we've covered a lot of ground. And let's be honest, it's not exactly a highlight reel of humanity's finest moments. But understanding why these countries are perceived negatively is just the first step. The real challenge? Figuring out how to move forward. It's easy to point fingers, to demonize entire nations based on headlines and political rhetoric. But the truth is, the world is a messy, complicated place, and there's rarely a clear-cut good guy or bad guy. International relations are a delicate dance, a constant negotiation of power, interests, and perceptions. How do our views of nations shape our global community?